Hey guys, welcome back to another video, and today I wanted to try something a little bit different. I wanted to kind of put some gameplay in the background here. Today I wanted to talk a little bit about a post I saw on Reddit recently, and it was about hover cars and atmospheric flight vehicles, not spaceships and not ground vehicles, but something kind of in between. And if you look at other sci-fi, hover cars are really common. Think about the Jetsons, even Star Wars. Luke's land speeder is one of the most famous vehicles in Star Wars. So why not Star Citizen? Star Citizen has several hover bikes, and it has several ground vehicles. It has the Ursa Rover, it has the Cyclone series, it has the Centurion and the Spartan and the Ballista. It has the PTV and the STV and the ROC and the RCDS. There are a lot of wheel-based ground vehicles, and we're going to get more. We're going to get the Ranger series, and we're going to get the Lynx, and we're going to get the G12. These are all more wheel-based vehicles. And on top of that, we're going to get more hover bikes. We're going to get the X1 series, which is the 3 hover bikes in that series. And that's a lot of hover bikes and a lot of wheeled vehicles. So where are the hover cars? It really doesn't make sense why we don't have a single hover car. We don't even have a concept for a hover car. So somebody kind of asked this question on Reddit, kind of saying, what is CIG's opinion about hover cars in the game universe? Is there a law reason why there are no hover cars? Is it something that CIG plans to do in the future? And they kind of, gave an example of the flying car from Blade Runner as something that only flies in atmosphere. It cannot get into space. And I feel like from a technical standpoint, that might be a little bit difficult for CIG to do, to make a flying vehicle that cannot go in space. But an easier thing for CIG to do is essentially take the tech that allows bikes to hover and essentially just implement that in a vehicle that looks like a car. In my opinion, that could probably be done really easy. Essentially take the STV, take off the wheels, and then take the tech from the hover quad and make a baby between the two of them. So the tech from the hover quad and kind of the body of an STV and mix it together, and you have a hover car. In my opinion, CIG could potentially do this fairly easy. Is there a reason why they're not doing this? I don't know. But ideally, the best ground vehicle in Star Citizen would be a fully enclosed hover car, because the problem with hover bikes is that they don't have as much utility as the ground vehicles. They have a more limited weapons platform loadout. They can't hold as many people. The Dragonfly is the only hover bike that can hold 2 people, and it's kind of an uncomfortable situation because one is facing forward and one is facing backwards. If they were just side by side, like in a car, they could both be facing forward. Okay, and the Dragonfly also does not have physical inventory like the STV does. In the STV, you can put the small single player carryable boxes. You could put 2 of them in the back, as well as having personal storage in the STV. So if you had a ground vehicle that had personal storage and that could carry 2 physical boxes, the utility of that would be tremendous, especially if it was an enclosed hover vehicle. Then you wouldn't have to worry about the elements. So one of the biggest issues with wheeled vehicles in Star Citizen is that the terrain on these planets are very extreme. The primary issue is when you are in a wheeled vehicle driving on a planet, it does not have the durability to stand up to a dozen crashes. It does not have the range to go the entire planet. And it is overall a very janky experience. The main issue with wheeled vehicles is that you also have to map it to your joystick or use a controller or use a wheel, which I've never tried any of those things. I've always just driven wheeled vehicles by using WASD, and that is a terrible experience. Controlling the steering of a wheeled vehicle in Star Citizen with WASD is just a joke. Right now, the PTV racetrack on Orson is a awesome track. The PTVs are really cool, but you can't realistically set any times because the driving is not good. Essentially, it's not a fluid, seamless experience. To drive a PTV or any ground vehicle well, you need to. I use my flight stick, and I use left and right as twist on my flight stick. So I twist left or right to kind of steer the ground vehicle, and that's kind of like a way to hack. And a lot of people who have HOTAS set up do that to control their ground vehicles. But if you're just using mouse and keyboard, the ground vehicle is not a good experience. So you have the terrain fighting you, you have the vehicle fighting you, you have the game fighting you. I mean, bugs, issues with the map, collision, all this stuff. Using a wheel vehicle to traverse on a planet is not a great experience. That's why a lot of people who use wheel vehicles, they use them over very short distances. The most popular ground vehicle is the ROC because it has the utility of mining. But other than that, every other ground vehicle, it's usually just to go short distances. Most people are not using wheel vehicles to circumnavigate planets. Hover vehicles, on the other hand, they have a much greater range because you don't have to worry about the terrain as much. You don't have to worry about damage as much. You don't have to worry about, issues with controlling the vehicle because, again, a hover vehicle steers like a ship. So you control the hover vehicle with your mouse. You don't have to use WASD to control the hover vehicle. And that is a major advantage to all hover vehicles. If I want to go in a direction, I just point in that direction with my mouse. It doesn't work like a wheeled vehicle. It's a completely different control model. So that's a major advantage. So for a lot of new players getting into the game, wanting to, explore planets, and this is the biggest thing, CIG has put so much effort into making their planets quality locations, places that you want to explore, you want to visit. But if you don't have the tools to do it, the best way possible, what usually ends up happening is that you don't experience it. Most people, they just fly in their ships to the locations that they want to go to, and then they might do a little bit of role play and use a ground vehicle. Now, ships like the Spartan and the Ballista and the Centurion get a little bit more use because they have a little bit more utility, but they still have a very short range. A lot of people don't go far in those vehicles. So if CIG made a hover vehicle, then you can, circumnavigate planets. I mean, you might have seen a video by content creator called Citizen Kate and Will, and she made a video series where she circumnavigates Microtech in a Dragonfly. And hover vehicles, hover bikes specifically in Star Citizen have a great range. They have good durability. They're the type of vehicles that you would take on long distances because you're not fighting the terrain. You're not fighting the control system of the vehicle. You can, easily get into it. is more approachable, again, because you don't have to worry about certain ramps and this and other, because it hovers. So if there's weird clearance in certain areas, you can still park it. Like, another issue with wheeled vehicles is if you kind of park your ship on an incline, you can't ramp into it. If your vehicle has like a vehicle elevator, take a ship like the Constellation, for instance, that has an elevator instead of a ramp. To get a vehicle in there, you really need to be on flat ground, and it's not easy to park on non-flat ground. But sometimes you don't know, and you're like, oh crap, I parked on an angle and I drove out, and now I can't drive back in. I have to figure out a way to get back in my ship and relocate the ship so then I can drive back in. And it's just a nightmare. A lot of times, because hover vehicles can hover high enough, they can still get in. So that's another major advantage to hover vehicles. So another thing is weather. Star Citizen is a space game. It does not make sense for there to be so many open air vehicles. The PTV, the STV, the Cyclone series, the Ranger series, the X1 series. I mean, all the hover bikes, for all intents and purposes, are open, so you need a suit. And depending on what planet you're on, you have like a limit to the amount of exposure you can have in that suit. So if you're going to use a hover bike, you can't circumnavigate a planet because you are exposed. Your suit has a certain durability. Your suit can't survive in this atmosphere indefinitely unless you wear a heavy suit. And a lot of people don't want to do that. You want to be able to express yourself however you want. You want to be able to wear the gear that you enjoy most. You don't want to have heavy armor on every time you want to go a far distance in a hover vehicle. So if you had a fully enclosed hover car, kind of like, the car in Blade Runner that the person from Reddit was suggesting, if it was fully enclosed and it hovered, then you wouldn't have to worry about that. You could essentially park this vehicle in your ship, not wear any suit, just wear regular clothes, get in the vehicle, and drive out of your ship. And you're inside the vehicle, so the atmosphere is contained inside the vehicle, so you don't need a suit. You can still drive around without a suit, essentially, because it's enclosed. And you can wear whatever armor you want. You can just wear undersuit if you want. You can wear regular clothes if you want. And that's a major advantage of having an enclosed vehicle. In having an enclosed hover vehicle, you can go anywhere you want. You can start to really explore this game. You can start really exploring locations, and you don't need roads. Like, I know CIG is talking about roads, but if they implemented something like this, if they made a ground vehicle, a hover car that was fully enclosed, you wouldn't need roads. You'd be able to drive wherever you want. You could put in your ship, land, and just explore the area as much as you want for as long as you want from ground level. And that's the thing. A lot of times players are not exploring these planets from ground level because they're just too big. And there's no vehicle in game right now that can really capture that scale correctly. Okay, so the last thing I kind of want to touch on is making vehicles based on what CIG wants and the gameplay that exists now. So a big thing with vehicles that CIG made in the past was that CIG was using these ships to create gameplay because the game wasn't as finished as it is now. Now we have a much more playable game. There are gameplay loops that are starting to develop, and players are seeing what kind of gameplay they like out of this game. They're saying, okay, this kind of gameplay is interesting, that kind of gameplay is interesting, and how do you interface with that gameplay, right? Or how do you interface with that emergent gameplay, I would say, because a lot of the stuff that players are doing is emergent content. It's not content that CIG, programmed in, but it's content that, comes as a result of other technologies coming in online. So essentially the fully procedural planets and the, accessibility of these locations, and CIG putting more locations on planets really makes the usefulness of having a vehicle like a fully enclosed hover vehicle more useful. Okay, so that is like gameplay driven, like that is CIG needing to create ships based on the gameplay we have in the game now. Like in the past, we wouldn't, we would be able to utilize a vehicle like that, but it is so much more useful now because there are so many more points of interest on planets that we might want to use a hovercraft to go visit. And in the future, this issue is going to be exacerbated because there is going to be, more rivers, more caves, more forests, more everything. And you might want to explore around. So let's say you take your ship to a river. Yes, it's very cool to fly around, but maybe you might want to drive along the coast. Maybe you might want to drive around in the forest. You might want to experience this location from a perspective that is more realistic, that is more, like imagine yourself in this location and be immersed in that location. Right now, I'll land in the forest on Microtech and go for a hike up a mountain, and it's incredibly immersive. And I could, lose myself in this location for hours on end. And CIG should really lean into that content because it's essentially low-hanging fruit. It's not brand new things that they have to make or something that they have to invest a lot of time and money into. They already made the planets. They already have the locations. They have now NPC navigation mesh. So they have a lot of this tech that is online now, that is in the game, that players can really take advantage of. But they're not, because it's not as accessible as it could be. So again, you have ships like the Expanse. I'm not saying that the Expanse is unnecessary, but I feel like a hover car is more necessary. Honestly, with the current gameplay, if CIG, a lot of people were excited about the Expanse, and the Expanse is very cool. But at the end of the day, for a system like Stanton, you can just go to a station, and refine ore there. And when Pyro comes out, you might just refine at another player's base or something like that. So the Expanse is not going to be the only option, for refining ore in Star Citizen. You'll have other options, other places you can go to be able to find ore, but there is really nothing like a hover car in Star Citizen right now. And I haven't really looked that into the lore of Star Citizen, but lore-wise, I haven't heard of, any hovercrafts. And CIG can really take advantage of this. I mean, strictly speaking, from a financial standpoint, if CIG released a hover car, it would sell out. So many people would buy that. One of the mainstays from sci-fi is flying cars. Star Wars, any type of sci-fi space thing that you can think of. The largest mainstay is we have spaceships, we have gigantic cities, and we have flying cars. Those are the three things everybody thinks of when they think of sci-fi. Giant cities, spaceships, flying cars, and ridiculous technology like, computers that are just a pane of glass, that type of thing, like Minority Report. That's what people think when they think of sci-fi. So for Star Citizen to not have flying cars, it's just very odd. So if they released a flying car, everybody would buy that because it has a ton of utility. Even if this flying car had no guns, no shields, nothing crazy, it was literally just 2 seats, internal storage, and it was enclosed and it hovered, everyone would buy that. Let's say CIG makes that $40 and concept LTI, everyone would buy that. Every single person who owns this game would buy that because it's useful. It's something that you can say, okay, I don't need a spacesuit and I can drive anywhere I want. I don't have to worry about bumping into the terrain constantly. You can experience the game in a whole new way. And so, in my opinion, I think CIG should make a hover car their number one priority for the next concept ship or the next straight to flyable, because that ship, that vehicle, would be one of the most popular ground vehicles they've ever made. The STV was wildly popular. The hover quad was incredibly popular. So if you mix two of the most popular ground vehicles in the game, the STV and the hover quad, it'd be twice as popular. Twice as many people would buy it. That's it. To me, it's just kind of a no-brainer. CIG needs to get working on this immediately, in my opinion. So, let me know what you guys think. Why do you think that CIG hasn't made a hover car yet? I've been saying this for a while now. I've posted on Spectrum, no response from CIG. Hit them up, share this video with them, try to get exposure to this, because I think it's a vehicle that's badly needed in the game. It would be so useful. And it would be so cool from a sci-fi standpoint. And CIG could even make the different manufacturers make and release their own hover car. Maybe there's a Crusader hover car, maybe there's an Origin hover car, maybe Drake makes a hover car. Drake makes the Dragonfly, maybe they make a hover jalopy. That's something that Jared was saying on the Inside Star Citizen. He wished that they would make this jalopy, this kind of like broken down kind of retro type car. That's a hover car's perfect thing for that, because let's say Drake made this thing 200 years ago and it's still popular and it's still selling out, and it's kind of like hobbled together and has different parts. Maybe there's a hover car that's kind of like it's kind of like a hot rod. Maybe Drake makes like a hot rod type hover car. So it's got like this big blow on the front of it, it's got like tinted out windows, it's got big intakes and exhausts and all this crazy stuff. That would be cool. People will absolutely buy that. There are so many people who are dedicated to Drake as a brand, and they would absolutely buy the heck out of that thing. And the same thing with Origin. Maybe you want a luxury car, maybe you want to ride around in style. There's absolutely a ton of players that would love a hover car made by Origin, and Crusader as well. Tons of brand loyalty with Crusader. These brands have huge audiences in the community, and if CIG made a hover car that's brand specific, people will go crazy for it. So yeah, that's it for me, you guys. Let me know what you think in the comments down below. What brand do you want to see make a hover car? Tell me why CIG has not made a hover car yet. I want to know. You tell me. Maybe someone from CIG is watching this. Share it with them. Get it exposed, because I feel like this is a topic that people really need to talk about. I saw that post and it had like a couple hundred upvotes on it, and it should have like a couple thousand. This is one of the most important vehicles in the game that we don't have right now, and I have no idea why. So like this video if you guys liked it. Subscribe if you want to see more videos like it. I'm gonna try to be more regular and upload twice a week. You guys are awesome. You guys have been killing it. You guys have been supporting me like crazy, and I really appreciate you guys. Are amazing. I will see you guys in the next one. Salute.